It is very difficult for us to ascertain the time and place for the birth of embroidery in Chinese antiquity. However, there is no doubt that it originated from the era when human textile and sewing were born. The earliest embroidery started from tattooing, which was later turned into hand craftsmanship applied to garment decoration in close combination with practical and attractive decoration in daily life. It was the beginning of the change from backward facial tattooing to civilization and progress of human beings. Legends, literature records, combined with archaeological excavation information in recent years. We may speculate that the early embroidery originated from the tattoo custom of ancient ancestors. Its universal application is based on the maturation and popularization of textile technology. Then, the tattoo pattern gradually moved to daily clothes, so as to show people's identity. After that, it gradually evolved into two branches of life embroidery and art embroidery, which have been extended till now. A bone needle unearthed from the Upper Caveman site in Zhou in Beijing dates back 8,000 years. It is 8.2 centimeters long, with the widest part being 0.33 centimeters in diameter. So far, it is the earliest sewing tool known in the world. One can imagine that when the processing of needles, threads, and fabrics was available, it was natural for the emergence of products for sewing and embroidery. Embroidery fabrics are mostly silk, wool, hemp, cotton, etc. There are also leather, which can be described as way embroidery. Prior to the emergence of cotton and linen fabrics, our predecessors in antiquity resorted to leather tanning for clothes. They brought about patterns on leather clothes by using bone needles to sew leather stripes or plant fibers, which was closer to the habit of tattooing. Before accurate excavated objects can be used as evidence, we can deduce that prior to the emergence of fabric, application of embroidery onto leather may be more frequently seen. A leather belt embroidered with silk that was unearthed from Tianshengguan tomb in Hubei province in 1978 may serve as evidence of this deduction. It is 40 centimeters long and 7 centimeters wide. The leather is covered with a layer of silk tabby embroidered with brown and dark yellow silk threaded circling hornless dragon kai patterns. The top and the bottom are embroidered with horizontal edge-shaped patterns. Based on present archaeological excavations, the immature dyeing techniques at the time did not make it possible for color to be applied to threads before stitching. Instead, color was applied after the embroidered patterns were finished. Let's take a look at the marks of silk fabric with patterns embroidered in chain stitch from the Western Zhou period that was found in the mud in the tomb of Yubo in Baoji, Shaanxi province in 1974. With this kind of embroidery, patterns were first outlined by yellow silk threads on the dyed silk fabric, and then big patches of color were smeared and dyed on the embroidered patterns, including such colors as red, natural cinnabar, and yellow, algar, etc. This was the feature of embroidery in its early period of development. Fabrics used for embroidery in this period did not have close-knit fibers. Therefore, patterns embroidered were sparser than those in the following generation. It was even more evident if the fabrics were cotton, linen, and wool. For instance, in 1978, a piece of woolen embroidery from the Western Zhou period unearthed from the ancient cemetery area in Wunbao Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region is marked by a reddish-brown wool with plain woven fabric structured with the same warp and weft. Gorgeous geometric patterns in small triangles were embroidered with running stitch by white wool threads, as well as threads dyed in yellow, blue, and pale green. When unearthed, they were seen over the body of a dead female. So far, it is the earliest embroidered object. It is a concentrated embodiment of the nature worship of ancient ancestors to symbolically embroider the forms and colors of all things in costumes. But because embroideries use material is organic material, if the not preservation environment is stable and appropriate, very difficult have more than 1,000 years embroideries to keep down. By contrast, the jade and bronze used in sacrificial ceremonies have survived for thousands of years. However, it is difficult for us to see the embroidery of the same period passed down. But dialectically, because embroidery is relatively not easy to preserve for a long time, but the material is relatively easy to get. This kind of art form created with silk and painting and calligraphy are the same. Corset gave outstanding vitality. From the very beginning of simple sewing embroidery, to now all kinds of schools colorful. Since the origin of embroidery in China, thousands of years has never stopped beautification and service life development process. From this, of embroider wonderful let us dazzle, still lively to this day. During the spring and autumn period and the Warring States period, 770–221 BC, embroidery was brought about by single chain stitch needlework. The most representative was a batch of embroidery in the middle and late stage of the Warring States period, 475–221 BC, that was unearthed from Chu State tombs of Jiangling County, Hubei province, though buried underground for over 2,000 years. They still appear gorgeous with exquisite patterns and vivid styles. They are well preserved in big numbers, featured by delicate and mature skills of embroidery. There are mostly over 10 kinds of colors, i.e., brown, reddish brown, dark brown, Yosin, vermilion, orange red, golden yellow, earthen yellow, yellowish green, dark green, blue, and gray, etc. Each pattern is combined with 3 to 5 kinds of colors that are mainly in warm hues in sharp contrast. Patterns are chiefly marked by dragons, phoenixes, tigers, and flowers. These different patterns look beautiful, neat, unrestrained, vivid, and regularly laid out with changes in symmetrical distribution and interaction and smoothness. The development of embroidery benefited from the unification of different states in China in the Qin period and the Han period, 221 BC 220 AD. When the system of conferment was replaced by the system of centralism, economic and cultural exchanges and integration became increasingly extensive. Social and agricultural production, as well as handicraft production, became increasingly prosperous. The textile industry developed rapidly, leading to the emergence of professional embroiderers apart from silk embroidery. Embroidery on woolen products is also often seen among embroidered articles unearthed in northwest China. Motifs of embroidered patterns became richer. In addition to mature chain stitch, short running stitch, blanket stitch and bead work also began to appear. They were new embroidery technique used to try to combine patterns. The development of mineral dyes tough and application of plant dyes tough further expanded the color spectrum of threads for embroidery. Embroidery is of practical use, but it is not only confined to the garment, since it has begun to be associated with daily decorative articles, such as sachets, gloves, pillow towels, needle thread containers, parcels with lace trimmings, brocade robes, knee pads, suspenders, face powder bags, mirror bags, stamps, ribbons, and embroidered trousers, etc. As an important turning point in the history of embroidery, it laid the foundation for the enhancement of the artistry of embroidery in the following generations. What deserves to be stressed is that representative patterns of embroidery appeared in the Qin period and the Han period, i.e., embroidery with swallow motif and embroidery with auspicious cloud motif. As terms of embroidery, the two patterns were seen in literature at the time, showing that the popularity and professionalism of embroidery were quite well grounded. What about embroidery in the southern and northern dynasties? The answer is in the colorful decorative embroideries on the supporters of Buddhist statues that were discovered in the Dunhuangmo grottos in Gansu province in the 1960s. Buddhism was popular in the southern and northern dynasties. Naturally, more religious objects were decorated by the craftsmanship of embroidery. Although the same chain-stitch needlework was applied to some articles of embroidery in the Northern Wei Dynasty 386 to 534, the rise, rhythm, and exquisiteness in animal-shaped patterns were still pervasive. The content of these patterns were added with elements of decoration and artistic paintings. Depiction of human figures in Buddhist embroidery was accurate in detail, making all creatures in Mother Nature vivid, including birds, dragons, flowers, grass, trees, and fruits. The design of craftsmanship was exceptionally artistic, just like a picture with emotion and sceneries, showing that the artists already had the innovative awareness of changing embroidery for practical use to embroidery for appreciation. The prosperity of the Sui dynasty and the Tang dynasty ushered in the continuous development of Chinese embroidery. Extensive emergence of religious embroidery, marked by embroidered scriptures and embroidered Buddhist paintings, stimulated the vigorous progress of embroidery craftsmanship. In this period, chain-stitch needlework of embroidery lost its leading position. From the embroidered articles of the Tang Dynasty, we have found beadwork, straight satin stitch, gold thread couching stitch, etc. Thus, there was more expression in embroidery in the Tang Dynasty. Discovered in the Thousand Buddha Caves of Jincheng, embroidery on this plain color twill damask with indistinct flowers of the Tang Dynasty is marked by bright colors, a variety of needlework, and noble patterns. Entwining peony was turned out by gold thread couching stitch to reinforce the sense of stereoscope. Vivid and lovely little birds flying across flowers were brought about by gold thread couching stitch for patterns. Embroidered garments and bags and kasaya of the Tang Dynasty collected in British Museum are witness to gorgeous and novel needlework of the Tang embroidery. Petals on the Tang kasaya were embroidered with a feathering-like effect, making the picture more vivid, three-dimensional, elegant, and eye-catching, while expanding the use of threads. Having completely changed the forms and modes and patterns prior to the Tang Dynasty, This laid the foundation for the development of realism of embroidery in the Song Dynasty. The Song Dynasty was a cradle for the birth of artistic embroidery, exerting a far-reaching influence on the development of Chinese embroidery. Its art is still highly respected. Artistic embroidery benefited from the promotion of paintings in the Song Dynasty, in which the royal court witnessed a batch of outstanding painters. Their art, if perceived according to the view in contemporary times, is still glorious and incomparable in terms of achievements. In addition, the royal family of the Song Dynasty exerted unified management over the production of embroidery, having set up Directorate for Imperial Manufactories, Crafts Institute, Embroidery Office, Ornaments Office, Silk Brocade Workshop, and Palace Weaving and Dyeing Office, providing favorable objective conditions for the maturity of artistic embroidery. Particularly under the reign of Emperor Zhao Ji in the Song Dynasty 1126, an embroidered painting specialty was established in Imperial Academy of Painting. Embroiderers of this specialty all used works of Academy painters to create embroidery. Since the art of calligraphy and painting in the Song Dynasty provided plentiful painting sketches for embroidery, artistic embroidery developed rapidly. An unprecedentedly high starting point gave rise to the vigorous development of embroidery art in the Song Dynasty, such as plum flower, bamboo and parrot, white eagle, riding crane to Yao Dai, ochre and butterflies, and hibiscus and crab. A number of artistic embroidery in the Song Dynasty all took the brushwork, lines, colors, and spiritual appeal of the Song paintings as standards of art, even over striding paintings. They brought the Song embroidery to the peak of amazing vividness and formed embroidery for appreciation independent of previous kinds. After that, artistic embroidery advanced ahead as a latecomer and progressed together with embroidery for practical use with a long history, greatly expanding the space for the survival and development of embroidery. Led the style of embroidery creation by many noted embroiderers and the growth of various schools of embroidery, enabling the art of Chinese embroidery to enter a new period. As discovered in the many years of embroidery research of the Yuan dynasty, there was a kind of unique fishing net embroidery which is rarely seen and known in the following generations. It is evidence of dividing history into dynastic periods for appraising and appreciating ancient embroidery, having a far-reaching significance on studying and perceiving embroidery in the Yuan dynasty. There were no schools of embroidery to speak of in the Ming dynasty, only with Gu-style embroidery, Gu-xiao embroidery in southern China and Shandong embroidery, Lu-xiao embroidery in northern China as representatives. Shandong embroidery inherited relatively rough and uninhibited features of embroidery for appreciation in the Yuan dynasty and used double-ply threads. In most cases, a whole thread was used for embroidery. The layout was natural and vivid thanks to direct application of bright colors and the characteristics of freedom and dignity, hence becoming the best among all kinds of embroidery in northern China. Long-standing and classic works of Shandong embroidery are none other than hibiscus and two ducks and mandarin ducks amidst the lotus pond, etc. Gu-style embroidery inherited the delicate application of silk embedded in the embroidered calligraphy and paintings of Song Dynasty embroidery, marked by the application of soft and tender colors as well as extremely thin thread-through-thread division. Enjoying much pursuit, appreciation, and admiration of scholars and men of letters, Gu-style embroidery influenced the style of embroidery in southern China. The founder of Gu-style embroidery was Milao Ruyun, one of the womenfolk of the Gu family. With her trees, bamboos, and rocks as the only real object left behind as an evidence of her embroidery art. Gu-style embroidery in early years was basically for family collection or given as gifts. Female embroiderers in the Gu family strive for appreciation, or it could be further viewed as pursuit of upper-class women for entertainment. In terms of embroidery art among female embroiderers in the Gu family, the most representative embroiderer was none other than Han Shimeng, granddaughter-in-law of Gu Mingshi. All her embroidered landscape, human figures, flowers, and birds were exclusively exquisite. From the very beginning, Gu-style embroidery endeavored to imperceptibly take the lead in the concept of creation for artistic embroidery. As a result, folk embroidery started to truly form new channels for developing artistic embroidery, bringing new prospects of growth to folk embroidery lasting for over 1,000 years. In the Qing Dynasty, embroidery was extensively distributed in China with a wide variety in great numbers and different styles. Moreover, official institutions got involved in management, hence leading to the maturity and development of artistic embroidery for appreciation, i.e., 4 major schools of embroidery gradually took shape. Suzhou in Jiangsu province was the center of embroidery from the Middle and Late Qing Dynasty. The embroidery that came from that region was known as Suzhou Embroidery, Suxiao. Sichuan Embroidery, Shuxiao, was produced in Chengdu in Sichuan province. Hunan Embroidery, Shangxiao, was created in Changsha in Hunan province. Guangzhou Embroidery, Guangzhou, came from Guangzhou in Guangdong Province. Chaozhou Embroidery, Chaoxiao, was from Changzhou. Guangzhou Embroidery and Changzhou Embroidery were both called Guangdong Embroidery, Yuxiao. In fact, it was not an accident that they became popular. Let's first take a look at Suzhou Embroidery, which is one of the 4 famous embroidery schools with a 2,000-year history. As the earliest real object of Suzhou embroidery, an embroidered coffin pole was unearthed in 1981 in Gaoyou, Jiangsu province, from the tomb of Madame Liu, wife of Liu Shu, Guangling king from the Western Han Dynasty, about 135 BC 87 AD. This cover was embroidered by means of chain-stitch needlework, presenting vivid and smooth-flowing clouds, birds, animals, flowers, grass, and curved tree branches. In the 1950s, remaining parts of embroidered Buddhist scriptures were also unearthed from under the pagoda of Yunyan Temple, built in 961 in Huqiao, Suzhou. In Suzhou in the Song Dynasty, there were such workshops of embroidery as court dress lane, Gunqiu Fang, brocade embroidery lane, Jinqiu Fang, embroidered clothes lane, Xiaoyi Fang, embroidered flower lane, Xiaohuananji, and embroidery thread lane, Xiaoxianxiang, etc., where embroidery works were produced. In the Ming Dynasty, Suzhou became the center of the silk industry, marked by silkworm breeding in every household and embroidery in every family, basically forming a style of meticulousness, elegance, and cleanness. In the Qing Dynasty, a variety of Suzhou embroidery and lots of embroidery shops emerged. In Suzhou alone, there were over 150 embroidery shops with more than 40,000 embroiderers. The establishment of the position of the Sichuan Embroidery School as the most famous one leaves no room for doubt. The records of the grand historian, Qi Ji, writes that Sichuan province developed silk weaving industry thanks to popular silkworm breeding. In the spring and autumn period, people in Sichuan province were already trading their silk woven products with present-day Thailand, which created necessary conditions for the emergence of embroidery. In the Eastern Jin Dynasty and Western Jin Dynasty, Sichuan embroidery, shoe brocade, gold, silver, gem, and jade were reputed as treasures of Sichuan. In the wake of the Tang Dynasty, there had been great demands for Sichuan embroidery among royal family members and people of all walks of life, hence making it famous across the country. In the Qing Dynasty, Sichuan embroidery became outstanding from among those kinds of embroidery of local production. At that time, noted painters got involved with the design of the embroidery. Painters and embroiderers worked together, having constantly enhanced the art and techniques of Sichuan embroidery. Thanks to its prosperity, Sichuan embroidery naturally developed into one of the four famous schools in China. The formation of Hunan embroidery was also inevitable due to its long history. In the Warring States period, chain stitch of embroidery was frequently seen in Hunan province. With a history of over 2,000 years, it is marked by vivid patterns and meticulous craftsmanship. In the Song Dynasty and the Ming Dynasty, patterns and needlework of Hunan embroidery became increasingly mature, quite similar to its style nowadays. In the Qing Dynasty, Hunan embroidery was seen all over the rural and urban areas of the province, with noted embroiderers coming into being successively. As pointed out by some art connoisseurs in the Qing Dynasty, Hunan embroidery was free from the manuscripts of Chinese paintings. Instead, it underwent revision according to the needs of embroidery craftsmanship. As a result, works of Hunan embroidery not only kept the strong points of paintings, but also gave better play to the beauty and exquisiteness of embroidery, hence having formed a unique style of art. Guangdong embroidery, including Guangzhou embroidery and Zhangzhou embroidery, also has a fairly long history. Guangzhou embroidery is fond of applying strong colors, prosperous seams to bring about a joyful and bustling atmosphere. Xiaozhou embroidery is featured by gold thread couching stitch, forming an unrestrained and bold bas-relief effect, which is different from other kinds of embroidery. The craftsmanship of embroidery in Guangdong province in the Tang Dynasty was already quite extraordinary. In the mid-Ming Dynasty, thanks to convenient transportation of coastal trade in Guangdong province, Guangdong embroidery became world famous. For a period of time, Guangdong embroidered articles were reputed as Chinese gifts for the West. Works of Guangdong embroidery are preserved in British, French, German, and American museums, having promoted the popularity and development of embroidery in British and French royal courts. If you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to leave a message below the video or send us an email.